Keefe D just got sentenced, and the one person everybody expected to hear from went completely ghost. We're talking about Snoop Dogg, the man who bought Death Row Records, the man who recorded two of America's Most Wanted with Tupac, the man who's been calling Pac his brother for damn near 30 years. And when the judge handed down time on the only person ever charged in Tupac's murder, Snoop said absolutely nothing. Not a post, not a comment, not even a like. But here's where it gets interesting, because what Snoop has said about Tupac in other settings tells a very different story, and the silence is louder than anything he could have put on the gram. So let's get into what actually happened in that courtroom. On September 2nd, 2025, Clark County District Court Judge Nadia Krall sentenced Duane Keefe D. Davis to 16 to 40 months in prison. And no, this wasn't for Tupac's murder. This was for beating up another inmate inside the Clark County Detention Center while he's supposed to be sitting quietly waiting on the biggest murder trial in hip-hop history. The fight went down in December 2024 after Davis was coming back from a personal visit. Him and an inmate named Rochlon Hamilton got into it, throwing closed fists, grappling, the whole thing. A correctional officer had to pepper spray both of them just to break it up. Davis got on the stand at his battery trial in April 2025 and tried to sell the self-defense story. He told the judge, "My parents brought me up to protect myself. That's all I was doing, protecting myself. This is totally wrong. They're charging me because of who I am." But the surveillance footage from inside the facility told a completely different story. The tape showed Davis stepping to Hamilton, initiating contact, throwing the first shots. The DA brought in 4 witnesses, 2 corrections officers who physically broke up the fight, Hamilton himself, who testified on video from his own housing unit, and a medical tech who documented the facial lacerations and swollen eye Hamilton caught from that beating. The jury watched all of it and came back with guilty verdicts on both counts, battery by a prisoner and challenges to fight, in under 90 minutes. That's how clear the video was. Wasn't no debate. Now here's the thing about this sentence. Judge Krall ran everything concurrent, gave Davis credit for 224 days already served, and turned down the prosecution's push for consecutive time or the top end of the sentencing range. She said the sentence fit the situation given that it happened in custody. So on paper, it's not the heaviest outcome. But zoom out for a second. This is a 62-year-old man sitting in a cell charged with first-degree murder for allegedly orchestrating the drive-by shooting that killed Tupac Shakur on September 7th, 1996, and he goes and catches a whole new felony for putting hands on somebody inside the facility. That's not a good look for a guy who's supposed to be building a defense for a case that could put him away for life. And that murder trial, it keeps getting pushed back. And if you've been following this case, the delays are becoming a story in themselves. The trial was originally set for June 2024. Then it moved to November 2024. Then March 2025. Then February 2026. And now it's sitting at August 10th, 2026. Almost 3 full years after his arrest. The latest delay came after Davis switched up his legal team. His new attorney, Robert Draskovic, told the court the discovery material is voluminous. And based on what we know, he's not exaggerating. We're talking about tens of thousands of pages of documents, recordings, interviews, past police reports, and exhibits that prosecutors have been building for decades. The state didn't even object to the delay. They want time to prepare too. And stay with me, because this connects to something bigger. In February 2026, the judge shut down Keefe D's motion to suppress evidence from the 2023 raid on his wife's Henderson home. That ruling is massive. It means prosecutors can bring in the laptops, tablets, documents, photographs, and Tupac memorabilia they grabbed during that nighttime search. All of it potentially tying Davis to the white Cadillac and what went down on Flamingo Road that September night. The defense had argued the search was improper, but the court disagreed. That evidence is coming into the trial, and it could be devastating. Now here's where Snoop comes in, or more accurately, where he doesn't. Through all of this, every court date, every ruling, every postponement, every new development, Snoop Dogg has been completely silent on the case. We're talking about a pattern running from September 2025 straight through February 2026 with zero engagement on any development in this case. Not one comment about the battery sentencing. Not one word about the murder trial getting delayed to August 2026. Nothing about the evidence suppression ruling. Nothing on Instagram, nothing on X, nothing in any sit-down interview. nothing on his Twitch streams, and he's been running those multiple nights a week during the exact same stretch these rulings were dropping. His timeline during this whole window has been nothing but new music, death row catalog plugs, Twitch gaming sessions, football content including his Swansea City AFC appearances, weed business posts, and family vibes. That's the whole menu. Every single thing except the Tupac murder case. And look, you might say he's just being respectful. And that's actually exactly what Reggie Wright Jr. said when somebody pressed him on it. Reggie, the former head of security at Death Row Records, was asked why Snoop hadn't said anything after Keefe D first got arrested back in September 2023. Reggie said he thought most people in that circle were being respectful to Tupac's family and allowing the legal process to play out. He pointed out that most rappers from that era were playing the quiet game too. Part of it was about not wanting to pick the wrong side on a case where nobody really knew how it was going to shake out. And honestly, that's a fair take. When you're connected to a case this high profile, sometimes the smartest thing you can do is say nothing and let the courts handle it. But Reggie drew a hard line, and this is the part that stings. He said if you're going to stay silent on the court proceedings, then you can't be out there throwing Pac's name around on stage to gas up the crowd. Don't be putting lights up in the air and shouting out Tupac if you're not willing to support him in a situation like this. You can't have it both ways. You can't mourn Tupac when it sells tickets and go silent when the man charged with killing him is sitting in a courtroom. And that push and pull between staying quiet on the case and staying loud on the legacy is really the core tension of this whole thing. Because here's what makes Snoop's position so complicated. In May 2025, he sat down with the Breakfast Club to promote his album, Is It a Crime? And got deeply emotional about Tupac. He talked about how his biggest regret in life was never squashing a disagreement they had before Pac died. He said Tupac was really his friend, that he passed away and Snoop never got the chance to apologize or even just say, "What is it? How can we fix this?" He talked about how that unresolved tension still sits with him decades later, how the chaotic environment at death row made everything worse. And then he said something that showed how much he's still carrying this. He said Tupac's mother gave him some sense of closure. He said hugging her and talking to her gave him half clarity on where things stood between him and Pac. Half clarity. After almost 30 years, that tells you how deep this goes for him. He also talked about his song, My Friend, which he wrote after losing his own brother. He said he cried the first 20 times he heard that record, and it's one of the few tracks he could never perform live. So this is a man who clearly processes loss through his music, who clearly feels the weight of relationships that ended too soon. And yet when the actual legal proceedings for Tupac's murder are happening in real time, he's got nothing to say. But then, in February 2025, things got even messier. Suge Knight, sitting in prison on a 28-year voluntary manslaughter sentence for the 2015 hit and run that killed Terry Carter, went on The Art of Dialogue and dropped a bomb. He accused Snoop of trying to bail Keefe D out of jail. Suge claimed that since he's been locked up, Snoop and other people have been sending people to try to get Davis released because Keefe D was talking too much. He implied that Snoop was scared about what Davis might reveal about the events surrounding Tupac's death. Then he went further. He claimed that Ray J once told him Snoop bragged about contributing money toward a hit on Tupac. He also said Snoop lied about visiting Pac in the hospital after the shooting, flat out saying that definitely didn't happen. Now, are these credible accusations? Suge Knight is a convicted felon with an obvious grudge against the man who bought his former label. He's been making inflammatory claims from behind bars for years. He questioned the legality of Snoop's death row purchase back in 2023 without providing any evidence. He spread unverified rumors about Snoop's wife in 2024. The man clearly has an agenda, but that doesn't mean everyone ignores what he says, and these claims got picked up everywhere. Snoop fired back on Instagram, writing that Suge won't stop talking about him and is just mad because Snoop owns death row. Now, he ended it with a wordplay shot, writing, "I realize your real lies." Then in March, when Suge went back on The Art of Dialogue and told Snoop to show him the paperwork proving he actually owns death row, Snoop didn't engage further. He let his initial response stand and moved on. Quick, dismissive, and done. So you've got this triangle. Snoop giving deeply personal interviews about his regret over Tupac, Suge making unproven but explosive accusations from prison, and Keefe D sitting in a cell maintaining his innocence after years of publicly admitting his involvement. The timeline doesn't add up the way you'd expect it to. and people are noticing. And to really feel the weight of all this, you have to go back to that night, September 7th, 1996. Tupac and Suge Knight were in Las Vegas for the Mike Tyson versus Bruce Seldon fight at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Tyson folded Seldon in 1 minute and 49 seconds. After the fight, while they were still inside the MGM Grand, Tupac and the death row crew spotted Orlando Anderson, a 21-year-old from the Southside Compton Crips, posted up in the lobby near the elevators. Trayvon Trey Lane, a mob Peru blood riding with Tupac's entourage, recognized Anderson as the same guy who'd been part of a crew that jacked him for a gold death row chain at a Foot Locker in Lakewood, California, a couple months earlier in July 1996. Lane pointed Anderson out, and that's when everything escalated into the altercation that set the rest of the night in motion. What happened in the hours after that confrontation at the MGM is what prosecutors say led directly to the drive-by shooting on Flamingo Road that took Tupac's life. He was hit multiple times and died 6 days later on September 13th. He was 25 years old. Keefe D has told different versions of what happened over the years, and that's one of the biggest problems for both sides. In a 2008 interview with the LAPD conducted under partial immunity, he put himself in the car. In further conversations with Las Vegas police in 2009, he provided more details. In his 2019 book, Compton Street Legend, he detailed his involvement and claimed he provided the murder weapon. He did interviews. He did a BET series. He was openly discussing his role for years. But now, sitting in that cell, he's singing a completely different tune. He told The Art of Dialogue, "I shouldn't have said nothing. I shouldn't have said nothing. And I'm innocent, man. And God got my back, and God will see me through this." He also said prosecutors have no solid evidence, claiming they can't place him in Vegas at the time. They don't have a gun. They don't have a car. They don't have anything. Whether that holds up against decades of his own statements is what the August 2026 trial will determine. Meanwhile, Snoop keeps building. Death Row Records is releasing gospel albums now. He dropped Missionary with Dr. Dre, then Altar Call as a tribute to his late mother, Beverly Tate, then Is It a Crime, all within about 6 months. 3 albums in half a year at 53 years old. He's mentoring Sexy I Red, running the Snoop Youth Football League, producing the kids' show Doggyland, talking about generational wealth with his grandkids. The man has completely reinvented himself from the guy who made Doggy Style into a media mogul and family brand. But that reinvention sits on a foundation that includes Tupac's legacy, and when the biggest development in Tupac's murder case is happening in real time, the silence from someone who calls himself Pac's brother hits different. So here's what I genuinely want to know. Do you think Snoop's silence is strategic, respectful, or is there something deeper going on that nobody wants to say out loud? And does it change how you see all those Tupac tributes knowing he won't say a single word about the actual case? Drop your take below because this conversation's far from over.